So if you didn't get to see what I predicted last week, I predicted the Arizona Cardinals would go into Buffalo, would go into Highmark Stadium, which I had no idea that was the name of the stadium now. I thought it was still Orchard Park, and then before that, New Era Field. But nevertheless, Highmark Stadium, and defeat the Buffalo Bills. It did not happen. In fact, there were a lot of eye-opening things to be taken from in that game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Buffalo Bills. And instantly, my reaction, just right off the cusp, a guy who is a follower of the Cardinals, a guy who is a fan of the Arizona Cardinals, someone who lives in Arizona, has been in the press conferences, has been in the halls, has shooken hands with other media members, has interviewed players. My very first assumption, my very first thought, my very first aha moment from this game was very much, quite simply, there is just an enormous gap between Josh Allen and that of Kyler Murray. Now, that doesn't mean Kyler Murray can't eventually get to the top 6 mark like I believe he could be at the peak of his powers, but yesterday was telling. Yesterday was very telling for the Arizona Cardinals, and even more so for Kyler Murray on Sunday. That was a game that if the Cardinals, I understand it's week 1, but just looking at it now, and that's all I can do, I can only evaluate what I have in front of me now. And evaluating what I have in front of me, that was a game the Arizona Cardinals had to win if you actually thought of them as at the peak of their powers, potentially being a playoff team. And then you say, well, it's just week 1. How could you say that? Look at the Cardinals' schedule. It is brutal. There's a chance they're 0-3 heading into week 4 playing against Cliff Kingsbury and the Washington Commanders at home. I hate to be the guy to already project losses, but in 2 weeks, they've got the Detroit Lions. And if you watched that Cardinal game yesterday, James Cook ran roughshod over this team. You don't think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and that very much effective and attitude adjustment like offensive line is not going to come in and absolutely terminate what the Arizona Cardinals have as a pass rush? It was tough. It was bad. And here is my main takeaway. I like to have a blame pie per se. I like to look around and give blame and then go through each one of those things and say, this is why they lost here. This is why they lost there. This is why they lost here. So let me just start here. If I am doing a blame pie and I'm blaming someone here and I'm blaming a coach there and I'm blaming a position group here, this is how I would divvy it up. I would give 25% to the Arizona Cardinals defense. Listen, the Arizona Cardinals defense is atrocious. But in the Arizona Cardinals defense, no pun intended, we didn't expect them to be good. We knew what they were. I've came on this podcast multiple times and said, this Cardinals defense is worse than you think. It's not better than you think. And I had really low expectations for this Cardinals defense. And holy bleep, did they somehow go even below that. It was atrocious. It was a monstrosity. It was embarrassing. It was a lackluster defense. The secondary played decently. Mack Wilson highlighted a few times. The pass rush was so bad, James Cook was getting 4 yards a pop whenever he wanted to, and oftentimes breaking big ones down the middle of the field. Josh Allen was carving them up. Yeah, there were some missed opportunities. Yeah, I would have liked to see guys wrap up. Yeah, did they get a tough break because Zaven Collins got a bad roughing the passer call or got a bad face mask call? Sure. I'm not going to blame the game on that. Neither should you. The Cardinals got multiple breaks at the beginning of that game. One that immediately comes to mind is Kyler Murray sliding and barely getting tapped and them getting a roughing the passer call or an unnecessary roughness call or whatever. At the end of the day, penalties more or less even themselves out. The Cardinals' pass rush was atrocious. The defense was atrocious. It seemed like every third down they were converting. But we knew that was going to be the case. The question for the Cardinals' defense was always, can they be bend but don't break? And for the most part, they were. They gave, and I'll get to this in just a second, the Cardinals offense a couple of chances to win that game still. And that's kind of more than what I could have expected for a defense that is lackluster, to say the least. And that takes me to the person that I believe gets another slice of what I believe is blame pie. Drew Petzing. Drew Petzing, if we have to be exact, probably gets about 30% of the blame pie. So as we have right now, it's 20% defense. Let's probably bump it up a little bit more for Drew Petzing, probably to around the 30%, 35% mark, somewhere around there. I'm not going to get exact, but you'll understand later what I mean. Drew Petzing, an offensive coordinator that I was very high on. I said in a video that now has thousands and thousands and thousands of clicks and hits on social media. He has the opportunity to get a head coaching job at the end of the year. That's how good his offensive schemes are. And for one half, Drew Petzing was dialing up plays. It was methodical. It was intuitive. It was fun to watch. It was James Conner up the middle here. It was James Conner swing pass here. It was rub routes over here. There wasn't much going down the field, but they took exactly what the defense could give them. And then going into the half with a 17-10 lead, which you would absolutely take if I told you the Cardinals had on Friday. And then at that point, Drew Petzing just completely abandoned everything that was working in the first half. And it was horrific play call after horrific play call. Most notably, and everyone kind of thinks this, was the horrendous monstrosity, asinine third down run that for some reason Drew Petzing thought would be a good idea to run. It was just a coaching clinic in the first half. And then, has this guy ever coached before in his life in the second half? That's how bad it was. It was a tale of two separate halves. And Drew Petzing has to get a huge slice of blame pie. And so for that reason, he's got 35% of the blame pie. And 20% goes to the defense. 25% goes to the defense. Whatever. We're not trying to do exact decimals here. And that brings me to the guy that gets the most amount of blame for this Arizona Cardinals team not getting a victory on Sunday at Highmark Stadium against the Buffalo Bills. I hate to say it, but the guy that deserves the most blame for the Arizona Cardinals losing on Sunday, and I'll get a lot of hate for this, and I have been a proponent and a believer and a defender of this guy, but it's Kyler Murray. Although I have been someone who has defended Kyler Murray, someone who has been at the side of Kyler Murray, I have taken the brunts and the beatings for continuously saying this guy is a bona fide top 10 guy, and at the peak of his powers, a top 8 to 6 guy in the NFL. Sunday was not a great day. When you have when you have 2 timeouts, one more time, when you have 2 minutes to go, you're down by 6, and you have 3 timeouts in your back pocket, you have to win that game. That is what separates the good quarterbacks from the great quarterbacks. Does Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins convert in a 2-minute drill with 3 timeouts left down 6? Probably not. Does Josh Allen? Does Joe Burrow? Does Tom Brady? Does Patrick Mahomes? Does Peyton Manning in his prime? Absolutely they do. If we, as myself, a Kyler Murray believer, if we believe Kyler Murray can be a superstar quarterback, or we, as some of us already believe Kyler Murray is a superstar quarterback, you have to convert on those 2-minute drills with 3 timeouts. I don't care what Dan Orlovsky puts out there. I don't care whatever Cardinals defender puts out there. I have always been loyal to the truth. And I'm not out on Kyler Murray, and I still love the guy, and I'm a defender of Kyler Murray, and I still believe he's a franchise quarterback. But this game mostly rests on his shoulders. Mostly. I could blame the offensive coordinator. He's not playing in the games. I could blame the defense. I already knew how bad the defense was. But at the end of the day, the defense, and I mentioned this before, gave Kyler Murray and the offense a chance to win this game with 2 minutes to go and 3 timeouts, and they didn't take it. And as I mentioned before, that's what separates the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomeses from the Dak Prescott and the Kirk Cousins, or better known as the haves and the have-nots. And on Sunday, Kyler was a have-not. You have to win that game. And again, I don't care whatever breakdown Dan Orlovsky puts out there. If there's a streaking butt-naked wide receiver in the end zone, Kyler Murray has to hit him. And a lot of that rests on the shoulders of Drew Petzing as well. But Kyler Murray, when there's a guy open downfield, he needs to catch it. Sure, Michael Wilson didn't do him any favors. But if we are going to fix the problem, we have to be honest about what happened. And that was a very winnable game. And because of the defense, and because of Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, and probably mostly the quarterback, Kyler Murray, that was the reason why they lost on Sunday.